Welcome back, and joining me with more insight on the day's trade is Anthea Gardner from Cartisean Capital. Thank you so much for your time, Anthea. The JSE, another day of good gains there, and actually even in the US markets. And I'm wondering what is fueling this optimism in the markets right now.
Sure. So the equity market had a nice little afternoon rally, although this morning it didn't show any signs of being excited that the VAT hike was scrapped. Bonds reacted very positively from the get-go throughout the day. The rand strengthened a bit in the morning and then weakened in the afternoon. And it was so weird as I watched it, because it doesn't appear to be particularly correlated to the US dollar moves. And then afterwards I realized that the rand liked the idea of scrapping the VAT hike, but then we got an announcement that load shedding was going to kick in again.
Oh dear.
And then of course I think, currency traders are obviously more circumspect, and I think they're looking for the detail on how Treasury is going to fill this apparent gap left by not increasing VAT. I mean, I think it's clear to everyone that South Africa needs a budget that spends on stimulating economic growth, less focused on social spending. And so perhaps now that the GNU has been cemented, and I'll tell you in a minute why I say that.
Yes.
We can expect to see kind of guardrails be implemented for spending that will actually stimulate the economy rather than just support kind of this terrible leftover, social needs that we have.
Yeah.
And so I'm still not 100% sure of the budget creation and approval process. I won't lie to you.
Yes.
I'm like, what happens next? But
okay.
Of course, now they do have to sit down and put together a budget that works. But I'm sure there's some relief that the Amplats demerger will bring an unexpected little windfall, even if it's only 10%. But we think this is good. We don't think the GNU will fall apart. In fact, this shows that they can overcome their differences, hopefully produce something that is good for the country, and makes the GNU stronger.
Well, quite interesting, because I mean, with the global dynamics happening with the tariffs and then also with the VAT hike, all of us were worried about the inflation picture. But it seems that things are still good, because as we even saw with producer inflation, it actually showed the same trend as the consumer inflation for March that we got yesterday. So what does this spell for the MPC going forward?
Yeah, I'm laughing or smiling, whatever it is, because this is a funny old story, right?
Yeah.
So PPI came in at 0.5% year on year for March, so down further from the 1% in February. It's the lowest positive annual rate in 5 years, and only October of last year was lower, and it was deflationary 0.7%, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And so with the CPI number and the PPI showing this, what is the MPC going to do? Because we all know that they're pretty hawkish, and everybody has commented. Yesterday, everyone was saying, yes, well, we know what the MPC is like. And even though inflation is now even well below the target band, they might not cut rates because of tariffs and the uncertainty in the market. But come on. I mean, there's so much rhetoric around it and uncertainty of tariffs and global politics, but we can only hope that the MPC realizes the urgency of economic growth and how rate cuts could stimulate, for one, consumer spending, which makes up 60% of our GDP. And I know it's not a perfect relationship, and government has to be held responsible for economic growth.
Yeah.
But I think government also they're in the position now where they need all the help they can get, and maybe the MPC will realize that and see that this is their opportunity to really put in a big cut next month. Yeah, next month.
All right. Well, as we're talking about inflation, let's talk about food, and particularly the Agri business. We do have Zeda with an ER coming out with its numbers today, its annual results. I actually don't know what to make of Zeda, right? Because they've just gone through so many strategic disposals. I don't even know what is left of the company at this point. But of course, we did see some decreases, a headline loss, and also some of its parts value per share actually decreasing. What's your reading of those numbers?
So the last time I checked, probably half an hour, maybe an hour even ago, the share was down only 3%. So they came out and they said that their net asset value for the full year is 177. Shares trading last time I checked at 143. And I think what's happened is that investors are understanding that it was this huge decline in net asset value over almost 29% was due to the special dividend they paid of 61 cents, and that investors don't actually mind so much, right? Like everybody loves cash in hand. But there was also a downward adjustment in the valuation of ZARD, which is a funny word for seed, really. That's the Turkish and African operations. But that was offset by the South African seed and chemical operations. And so, yes, their headline loss was 10 cents per share after a profit of almost 1 cent per share last year. That's right. I haven't got that wrong. I'm just trying to remember the numbers exactly. So it is a tough one to kind of get your head around. And you know that holding companies always trade at a discount, which is why ARC wants to delist and so many other companies. And so I think it's not one that I have a model for, Zanati. So I'm sorry I can't give you an absolute, but it feels to me like this is the right number that it's trading at.
Okay.
And what we need now is kind of a positive report back from them. Although I think they did say that operations were going to be relatively constrained. You know, the weather plays a big role, and global market dynamics and conflict in the Middle East and Eastern Europe have all been the things that negatively impacted. And unless we see a change in that, there's no real catalyst, I don't think, for Zeda.
All right. Well, let us get to your stock pick for today, Anthea. We have about 30 seconds. What are you hanging your hat on?
Very boring. It's Harmony Gold. But Harmony Gold is probably the most leveraged gold producer in the country. And so as the gold price increases as it has, Harmony's the absolute winner. And the question is whether or not gold will continue increasing, because if it doesn't, I have an alternative for you. And those are the royalty and streaming companies, Franco-Nevada, Wheaton, Precious Metals, Sandstorm, Royal Gold. Those are all not as leveraged and so more defensive. If the gold price falls, they're more likely to outperform. But I do think Harmony is going to outperform as this gold price continues to be so strong. And I've got so much more to say, but I think my 30 seconds are up.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Anthea. And I'm sure that there will be more to say, because I don't think that gold price is going to cool down anytime soon. But anyway, I do not have a crystal ball with me. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights there. That was Anthea Gardner from Cartisean Capital.